some history and music in the genre and subgenres of metal and punk.
Hello and welcome back to The Breakdown, where I break down some history and music in the genre and subgenres of metal and punk. Today I'm going to be talking about the history of metalcore. Metalcore was a genre birthed by both metal and hardcore punk. Most argue the genre goes back between the 80s and 90s, but the most prominent evidence was in the 90s with big successful bands like Converge, Integrity, and Earth Crisis. Within the 90s era, the genre had created influential bands like Poison the Well and Seven Angels, Seven Plagues. Both of these bands released albums that really defined the sound of metalcore. Both albums being named The Opposite of December, A Season of Separation by Poison the Well, and Jasmine's Lullaby by Seven Angels, Seven Plagues. Then in the 2000s, bands like Avenged Sevenfold and Killswitch Engage became popular with their album released by the names of Waking the Fallen and The End of Heartache. All of these bands that I just listed under the metalcore genre, Poison the Well, Seven Angels, Seven Plagues, Killswitch Engage, and early Avenged Sevenfold all have one thing in common. It was their yearning. The most common topic covered between these bands were broken relationships and things similar to that, like heartbreak and vice versa. Now, in the early 2000s, in my opinion, this was the golden era for metalcore, as huge names like Trivium, All That Remains, As I Lay Dying, Atreyu, Bullet for My Valentine, and etc. were releasing gems in this decade. In the 2000s, the genre also grew really popular on their social media website MySpace. This cultural influence created a new genre. The genre was named crapcore. This little subgenre forged bands like Asking Alexandria and Attack Attack. Metalcore is different around the US. Bands like Madball from New York and Disembodied from Minneapolis all fell under the more hardcore side of the genre with heavier breakdowns and meaner guitar riffs. Then within the next decade, by the 2010s, the genre was diversifying, making other genres like deathcore and crapcore. Also in the 2010s, bands like Parkway Drive and August Burns Red really thrive in this era of metalcore. This 2010s era was really good to most of the bands I mentioned already. Most of these bands are still making music under the genre, but some bands change or go a different direction. A really good example is Avenged Sevenfold changing up some of their hardcore punk influence. Now they're going towards a more cliche and rockstar metal sound. A really good example of this is like from them going to making songs like Darkness Surrounding to making really cliche ones like Hail to the King. But nowadays, modern metalcore bands like Bad Omens, Ice Nine Kills, and Beartooth are really following the gimmicky cliches and appealing to newer generations of metal and punk, making the sound completely different and, in my opinion, worse than the roots of bands like Converge, Madball, and Earth Crisis. Now, if you want to really listen to the genre or learn more about it, I would suggest listening to Avenged Sevenfold's first two albums, Trivium's Ascendancy, the album Allegiance by As Blood Runs Black, and Bless the Martyr, Kiss the Child by Norma Jean.